Today we will look at the problem that are you all able to hear me? Hello.
Yes, sir.
So let us look at the problem that we were trying to do yesterday, where filling up a uh, filling up of a bottle. So this is the header through which some gas is coming, and this is the valve. So here the pressure is higher on the header and it is lower here. Initially, there is no mass inside. And then what we found out is that doing this. So here, this is the original equation. The rate of change of energy, total energy inside is equal to m dot in, and this is the energy which is coming in per unit mass. And here we use enthalpy, where here we use internal energy. So and this out, there's no mass going out, nor there is heat transfer, nor there is work transfer across the boundary, because Q dot is insulated, W dot is zero, rigid. Kinetic energy, potential energy has been neglected. So what we see is, so the change in energy inside, M is the mass inside that bottle, and U is the specific internal energy. That change is because of the enthalpy that is coming in, the energy coming in through the enthalpy from the header. So naturally, the increase in mass inside the bottle is depends on whatever is coming in, because initially there is no mass. So if we do that, so if we say this is delta M in, this is the mass coming in, and this is the change in mass inside. So if you do all that, then what we see is, so this is equal to delta M in, the mass coming in, and this is also delta M in, mass coming in. That is, the mass coming in is equal to the change of mass inside the bottle, and that is UCV is the final UCV, the final internal energy, specific internal energy. So that is in, say, joules per kg is the unit, right? Finally. So the finally, whatever internal energy you have finally inside, that is equal to the enthalpy at the header. Now, so this is internal energy and this is enthalpy. So, but enthalpy is internal energy plus flow work. So the difference between them is the flow work. It is the flow work that is responsible for increasing the temperature here. See, internal energy is equal to enthalpy right here. That means the internal energy here, whatever internal, this is U1 plus P1 plus V1, right? So this is internal energy plus work, but here it's only internal energy. So it is this work, extra work, that is being converted to heat here. So here the internal energy is high, so that means the temperature inside will also go up, right? Why is it going up? Because of this extra work that we are doing, PV work. That is why it is converted to, increase in internal energy here inside. So let us see. So this is the at 30 degrees centigrade, that is at the header, and pressure is, so this is pressure. It looks like density. No, I should write it properly. So here it is pressure. Pressure. Pressure P1, T1. Pressure, say it's 10 bar. Okay. So and let PF, let it be something like 8 bar. Right? Let this be inside 8 bar. So here it is 10 bar, and inside the pressure you're going to fill it up to 8 bars, say, right? 8 bar, and we have to find out what is the TF. TF can be determined because it is given, right? How do you determine it? Let us see. Yesterday we are having some difficulty, so this is how we will do it. So propane at 8 bar, right? That means 800 kilopascal. Now let us go here and let us see. Calculate. So this property is online, fluid property calculator. Fluid property calculator. Let us go, and I choose propane. Okay, let us say propane. Now let us see. So this was at 30 degrees centigrade. So here it is 8 bar pressure, right? Our pressure is 8 bar. Okay, what we have to see is pressure is 8 bar. And if the temperature has to be more, otherwise the internal energy will not be now. But we see internal energy is not given here, enthalpy is given. Okay, so enthalpy is given, so 8 bar, temperature is say 40 degrees centigrade, right? And so calculate enthalpy is 365.95. So 365.95 is the enthalpy at 40 degrees centigrade. Now what is the density? Density there, the density will be 15.4. 15.4 is the density. So what is PV? Pressure is 8 bar, 800 kilopascal. PV is, what is V? V is equal to 1 by rho, that we all know, right? So V is equal to, we know here that specific volume is equal to 1 by rho. Right? This is known to us. So pressure is 800 and here density is given. So P by rho. So that is, we can do this calculation 51.95. Right. So H minus PV. H minus PV is U. So then we calculate 584 is the U, value of U in kilojoules per kg. So from here, although the U is not given here, we can calculate the U. So it is 584. That's what we see. Okay. Now, what is the H here at 10 bar and 30 degrees centigrade? H is 609 kilojoules per kg. H. So U at 8 bar and this T degree centigrade has to also be 609. So it's 584. Similarly, if I do it for 50 degrees centigrade, I can do the same calculation at 50 degrees centigrade. So if I do 50 degrees centigrade, right, then the density is 14.7, right, and the enthalpy is 655.3. So here also I can calculate and I can see it is rising 584 at 50 degrees centigrade and 8 bar it is 600. So if I do a little bit more, say 55, then it comes to about close to 609. So the temperature at this temperature, so what do we get finally? So TF can be determined. So what is this TF? So therefore T final is approximately 55 degrees centigrade. So 55 degrees centigrade is the final temperature. So if you insulate your cylinder and if you keep on pushing gas into it, then that extra that work that you are going to do, because you are insulating it, that will get converted to the temperature rise. So the inlet temperature is 30 degrees centigrade of the header, but when it goes inside, because you are pushing the fluid inside, the temperature will become higher. It will become 55 degrees centigrade. And now in actual case, when you fill up these tanks, do you really insulate it? I don't think so. They don't insulate it, but but it happens so fast. The filling up the cylinder happens so fast that very little heat will be able to go out through the bottle by conduction. It takes time. So it's a reasonable assumption, right? The insulation assumption is reasonable, right? But if you keep the bottle longer in the atmosphere, then slowly again it will come back to 30 degrees centigrade. Right? Now let us look at the actual filling up of LPG. So I went to the Indian Oil site and I found out some information about our LPG cylinder that we have at home. So let us see, some real life. Now let me create a new page. Let us do that real life problem, right? So let us see, if you go to Indian website, Indian Oil website, Indian gas, we all know, we LPG gas, we use LPG gas at home, right? LPG gas. So I found out that the LPG gas that we use at home is having, say, 14 kg. 14 kg of gas LPG plus 14 kg, about 14 kg is the weight of the cylinder. So if you measure it at home, 14 kg, 14 to 15 kg. So an empty cylinder will weigh about 14 to 15 kg, and a filled up cylinder will weigh about 28 to 30 kg. So 14 kg is the amount of LPG that we get in our home now. So we can measure the cylinder volume, right? So cylinder volume, if you measure, right, so it will come out to be about 175 liters that you can measure at home. 175 liters, right? Liter is the cylinder, LPG cylinder that you can measure, 150 to 175, 175 let us take, and 14 kg. So what is the density? Density of the LPG gas that we get at home. So density LPG, right, when it's filled up, that we get is equal to, say, 14 by so many kgs per liter, 175, right? That is the density. So that will come out to be 14 is per liter, right? If I use my calculator here, right? So I've done here 14 by 175. So that means 0.08 kgs per liter, right? Kgs per liter. So kgs per liter. So if you multiply by 1000, it will give me kgs per meter cube. So it's 80 kgs per meter cube. So kgs per liter, that means equal to, right? I can write, it will be equal to, right, 80 kg per meter cube. So what is LPG? Right? A mixture of isobutane plus isopropane. Okay, so that is LPG gas. This is universal in every country, but in our country, I have heard that it is mostly this one. It is mostly in our country. It is mostly isobutane. So let us not use this. Let us use isobutane as our LPG gas. We don't want to have, because we have not studied mixture of gases yet. When we study that, we'll be able to handle it. Now let us say it is pure isobutane, right? So when we receive the cylinder, all these are measurable. You can measure at home. So density is 80 kgs per meter cube. And now let us see what is the state of this isobutane gas that we have, right? LPG. So let us look at the isobutane now. And this is how you do actual problems. So where is isobutane? This is isobutane. So isobutane, that is what we have. Now, what is the temperature here? Let us say the temperature is, say, 20 at home, 25 degrees centigrade, right? 25 degrees centigrade. So that is the temperature, right? And let us see. We want to see if it is saturated condition 0, right? 0. -1 means, if it is saturated, then the moment you give a temperature, it will have a corresponding pressure. We can find that out, say, right? For every this thing, we'll have a pressure. So then if you calculate, it is 2.43. No, I want to calculate the density. Density is at 25 degrees centigrade, right? 25 degrees centigrade, saturated condition. So at that is so. Now, what about the vapor condition? 1. 1 means vapor fraction fully. So that is about 25 degrees centigrade, 9, right? So let us see. So here ours is in between, right? So let us draw. Let us have an understanding. If anybody is not understanding what I'm talking about, you should. Okay. So what we have is, if we draw this diagram, it's a TS diagram or whatever. Normally we do that. Okay, so here we have liquid, vapor. So isobutane, right? Isobutane, vapor, liquid plus vapor. Now, what is the temperature? Temperature is, say, 25 degrees centigrade. Okay. So here, if I draw it, so in 25 degrees centigrade, it will go from here to here. Right. So this is at x equal to 0. This is at x equal to, so this is, right, x equal to 1, and this is x equal to 0. So this is at P sat, P saturated, and T saturated. P and T sat are, once you set the T saturated, P saturated gets settled, right? So what is the P sat, T sat? We can also find it out from here, right? Saturation temperature. Given a pressure, say, I don't know, pressure of 10 bar, if you give, it gives, so 66. So pressure of 5 bar will give you 37. Pressure of 1 bar will give you 12. Pressure of 3 bar will give you 19. 3.5 bar will give you 24. So more or less 3.5 bar, right? Or 3.5 bar if you do 35, probably 5.1. Let us see. 25.03. So here it is, say, say I say 3.5 bar, 51 bar, and 25 degrees centigrade. So 3.51 bar is the PSAT and 25 degrees centigrade. So this is what is happening. Now at x equal to 0 at 25 degrees centigrade, right? So at this, I want to calculate the density. So we have seen actually -1 pressure and 25 degrees centigrade, right? So at 0, it is. So here it is. What is the density here? The density at this point is rho is equal to rho F, I will say rho F. Rho F is equal to 550. And what is about rho G? Rho G is equal to, let us see what is rho G. Rho G will be equal to 9.12. So rho G is equal to 9.12, right? 13, say 13 kg per meter cube. So what do we have to find out? We have to find out the what is the, so our goal is 80 kgs per meter cube. So here's 550 and 93. So what is the value of x for which I will get 80 kgs per meter cube? So let us check. So the rho, right? Our rho is 1 minus x rho F plus x into rho G, right? Okay. So that is equal to, right, rho F plus x into rho G minus rho F. So let us do it. So ours is 80. What is rho F? Rho F is 550 plus x into rho, what did I do? Rho G minus rho F. What is rho G? Rho G is so rho G is 9.13 minus rho F is 550. So that is equal to 550 plus, so let us do it again. So we do this calculation, right? Calculation, let us do it. So ours is 550 minus 9.13, right? So 540.87. So here what we get? So we get minus x into 540.87. So what is the value of x? So we have to write the value of x now. So value of x will be equal to, right, x will be equal to 550 minus 80 by 540.87, right? So that will be the answer. So what we do, 550 minus 80. Minus 80 divided by, so what is the value, right? So 0.86. So what is the value of x is equal to 0.86 the value, right? So 0.86 is the value that we have, right? So is it right? 14 kg. So let us do the calculation again, right? Let us do the calculation again, whether it's right or not. 14 kg by 175, right, into 1, okay, 80, it's fine. So x equal to 86. So let us check here. So if I put x equal to 0.86, more or less, let us see. No, something wrong. 25 degrees centigrade. I must have done something wrong. Okay. Let us, something has been done. Okay. Actually, they may be have done some. This is our approximate calculation, of course. Let us do it from here. That this is an approximate calculation. These are real values. These are our theoretical calculations. So let us follow the real one. So let us see. So 0.8 not work. 11. No, no, no. So this is for real gas that we are, and this is for ideal. Okay. So let us. This is what we get. So I will write here question mark. These are theoretical values that we are getting according to our. So let us do the actual calculation here. Right. So 2. So 2 is 42. Actually, I did some mistake. I think 2 4. No, it should be less. 20%. 20%.
Can you put 0.14?
Let me see. I think I did the mistake there. 0.14. I did a mistake somewhere. Like that. I think I did a mistake there. I did it differently. 0.12. I did that mistake somewhere. 1. See, it's more like it should be. So let us not do this. Somewhere I have done a mistake. Let me just we will do that. So x will be more like, x should be, I have done some mistakes somewhere. Anyway, x should be more like 0.1, right? Then density becomes equal to, right? So this calculation, let us not. So rho will be equal to then 80, approximately 80 kgs per meter cube. So x equal to 0.1, right? X equal to 0.1, then we get this. Here we have done some mistake. This is 500 and this is 9. So it should have been, I was thinking it should be here, 0.8. Right. Anyway, we'll see later. So this is correct. So this is the actual value. So it is x equal to 0.1. X equal to 0.1. Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, like why will you not take pressure equals 3.51? Here you have written -1.
Oh, okay. See, what happens is if you look at these details of vapor fraction, right, written here, I looked up. So if it is wet steam, then what happens is either set the value of T and P as -1, one of them, right? And then set the value of X 0 to 1, right? Either P has to be -1, or that means -1 means we are not considering it. Because what happens is, what I found out is that once temperature is set, then the Tsat, Psat is already known inside. I should not put any values here. -1 means I'm not putting any value here. So either I can put 3.51 bar and then -1 here, but that calculation is not available here. So 25 and P for 25, Psat is already known inside the program. I don't have to, I cannot give the value. It is known from inside because Psat is related to Tsat. Once Tsat is known, Psat becomes 3.51 automatically inside, right? I only have to give the X values, right? So that is why I cannot put Psat. That's what I found out here. So X is equal to 0.1. Right? Let us not look at this calculation. Something must be wrong. So okay. Oh, I know what I did mistake. Okay, anyway. So that is, so X equal to 0.1. X equal to 0.1, right? And so let us see if X equal to 0.1, right? So so we know that the when you get the at home, when you get the LPG cylinder, right, at 25 degrees centigrade, you know, which has so uh, the it is 3.5 bar about. So when you go to the gas station, when they fill it up, you know, 10 bar is fine. So you can fill it up with LPG gas. You can do this problem for a real LPG gas, where you can have a header. You can have a header at 8, 10 degree, 10 bar pressure, 25 degrees centigrade, and you can heat it up, right? So let us see what will happen here. If we do the same thing, if we fill up this tank using the header, so let us see what will happen. Just let us do it quickly. And so let us fill up. So this is the X. So let us fill up this tank. Okay. So let us fill up this tank. Right. So here, this is our header. Our header. And you are filling up this LPG bottle. LPG bottle. So once you fill it up, right, so right, so here it will be vapor and this will be, right. So this is our liquid petroleum gas. So here let the pressure here be, when you fill it up, let the pressure be P1 equal to say 8 bar, or maybe let it be 10 bar, I don't know how they do it. So let T1 be equal to 25 degrees centigrade. You have to fill it up so that you have 14 kg of gas, right? You have 14 kg of gas. So here also, if you insulate it, if it's insulated, if Q dot, if you insulate this cylinder, if Q dot equal to 0, that means insulated, right? And work dot is 0, we know. So then, like we have done the calculations before, right? Initially, if M initial in tank in cylinder equal to 0, then we know that U, right, final at some right, at some P final, T final will be equal to H, right? We have done previously P1 header and T1 header, right? That is what we get. Now P final, right? So we have to decide. So this is what it is. So P final, right? So this we will choose, right? We have to fill up the tank. We have to fill it up, and we know the volume of the tank is volume of cylinder that we get at home is 175 liters, that we know. So we have to fill it up, fill up until density rho becomes equal to, inside becomes equal to 80 kg per meter cube, right? 80 kg per meter. So for that you have to get the PF and TF, and PF and TF we already know here. Say TF, PF, it is like this, right? So you have to know where you are. Say for example, once you fix 25 degrees centigrade, it becomes 3.5 bar. They are related. So one of them only you have to fix. The other one gets automatically fixed, because we know it is two phase. Vapor and liquid is existing together, right? It is not pure vapor nor pure liquid, LPG. So what you have to do is, I will give you this problem. You have to do is, what should be the pressure if Q is insulated? I mean, if it is insulated. Now what happens is, in real life also, the filling up is so fast, this assumption is a good assumption. It's a very good assumption. There will be very little heat loss so far. So after that, what will happen? So the temperature inside will rise. After that, what will happen is, you will keep it in the warehouse, right? Once you have filled it up in the warehouse, slowly the temperature will become equal to the outside temperature, and then you will have heat loss, right? At that time, again the pressure and temperature will change. Temperature you already know, so temperature when you fill it up will rise. then when you keep it in the warehouse, slowly it will lose the temperature and the pressure will also change. Temperature will come down, pressure will also come down naturally. So, and when they deliver it at home, so you will get the pressure of 3.51 bar. But when you fill it up, right, the temperature will be higher and so will the pressure be higher when you fill it up. So this is the story of our LPG gas filling, right? So that means you have to look up. See, this is, I showed you how to calculate the property. Not that all properties are given, in your free website, but you can calculate one from the other, like I did, right? Here I did, right? From the enthalpy and density, I can calculate the U and then get the answer, right? So the actual LPG filling, as I told you, the one that we get at home. So when they fill it up, the temperature rises, right? The temperature rises and the temperatures rise. And then when you keep it in the warehouse, the temperature will again fall and the heat will be lost. And the temperature will come down to 25 degrees centigrade and 3.5 bar. So when you get it at home, inside it's 3.51 bar. And it is, x equal to 0.1. X equal to 0.1. So very close to this. X equal to 0.1. Although I'm a little bit surprised, actual calculation, why it is x equal to 0.1. So that is what is coming from here. So this is a more accurate way of calculating. This is a real calculation for isobutane. And of course, theoretically, we got this, but the actual values are different. Actual values are different. So from here, so this is a real gas, and that is the ideal that the calculation that we are doing is more or less ideal. So this is the actual values here. 25 is 0.1. Okay. So this is the this is how you can calculate. So let us give you another example of the first law. Let us see. So this is the Joule's experiment that was done. I probably have discussed before also, where here the work. So you have a stirrer here, and then this weight goes down, and this thing churns, and there is work transfer. And you can initially insulate it. If you insulate it and if you have work transfer, this work transfer is taking place because this potential energy is losing this potential energy. So that energy is being fed to run the stirrer, and so work input is there. So if it's insulated, the temperature will rise, right? Temperature will rise, and then if you let it stay like that for some time, the temperature heat will be released and the temperature will again fall, right? So the work that you get finally gives rise to the heat loss. So first you insulate it, then you churn it, the temperature rises, then you take off the insulation. Then what happens is this fluid will go back to the original temperature, to the original state. So it will be in a cycle. So work transfer and then heat transfer. Not at the same time, at different times. So the state of the fluid, its temperature rises and again falls back to the original temperature and original state, and pressure is same. So here we have done some work and we have been able to get heat out of it. So work to heat transfer. So let us look at another device. So there are many devices, right? So in this case, you have an engine. So you burn fuel. That is more like you are putting in energy, some heat, and then there is expansion, right? The fuel burning is like heat supplied, and there is expansion. right? And then compression again, it goes in a cycle. So there is some net work transfer, right? So you have net heat input and you have work output. Right? So what happens is in here, when the fuel is burning, the exhaust gases, what happens? The temperature rises, but the exhaust gas, when it goes out, hot gas, so some heat is also released with the hot gas. So here, while in this case, it's pure only work in and only heat out. So only work in and heat out. But here, there is the net Q is in and there's also out. Out. So in minus out is the net, right? And work is also like that. See, sometimes the piston moves back and forth. So work positive, work negative. So there is some net work, right? There is some net work. So you have net heat input and net work output, right? They are same. Okay, this is the energy balance. But in this case, only work in and only heat out. Here it is not so. Heat in, heat out, work in, work out, both are there. So there is a difference. I will later show you that all the work in cannot be converted to, all the work in can be converted to heat, but all the heat in, net heat, cannot be converted to work. So there has to be some out. So this out, work out, the heat out has to be greater than 0. When you have heat in, right, you cannot have heat in and then convert to work. The other is not possible, but work in converted to heat is possible. Right? This is not possible. I will show you, later on. So work out, heat out has to be there when you have heat in, because everything cannot be converted to work, but work can be converted to heat. That is, then I will come to second law. The second law will tell us that this is what is needed. Only if you only do first law, then we cannot explain this behavior. We need another law to explain this behavior, that all the heat in cannot be converted to work, but all the work in can be converted to heat. So this is how our engine works. Right? So here also, similarly, we also have our power plant. In a power plant, we have several devices. In the boiler, we burn our coal at high temperature and you have heat in. And we also have a condenser where you have Q out. So it has been designed in such a way that you are having Q in as well as Q out. You cannot design a work producing device, right? Right. The previous one was a work consuming device. The Joule's experiment that was done, right? That was a work consuming device. Work consumed and heat out. That is possible, work consuming. But you cannot have a work producing device like an engine where you will have only Q in. You have to have Q out. So whenever we design, and this is as per the second law. The second law, we'll come to the second law where I will explain why it is necessary. But it has been figured out. So whenever we design any work producing device like our power plant, like our internal combustion engine which drives our car, we always remember that first law and second law has to be satisfied. So we design our process, cyclic process, in such a way there is some heat coming in and there is some heat going out, because we know if we do not do it, design it that way, it will not work, right? So second law, I will come to second law. So with this, I am ending here. So let us have a 5-minute break, and then I will introduce the second law of thermodynamics. Now you know why we need the second law to explain this behavior. First law does not tell us that all the heat cannot be converted to work. It only tells us energy balance. That is not enough to design a device properly. Okay, so let us have a 5-minute break, and then I will introduce the second law of thermodynamics. And I will upload some of the problems that you have to do. So now you know how to look up the properties of any gas. You will be, steam tables are also available here. Steam tables are also available here, right? Steam tables are also available. And here I think there are a lot of properties here, right? So a lot of properties here. So steam tables are also available. So you'll be able to do the problems looking up these tables. But you have to have an understanding. You should also know the drawing that I did, the TS diagram. That also you should have in your pictorially. You should be able to imagine it and then do this calculation. Okay, let us have a 5-minute break. So we'll come back at, in my watch it is 11:54. So we'll come back at 12. Right, 6 minutes, after 6 minutes. Okay, let us have a break. Now, so this I will now talk about the second law of thermodynamics. Now the first law of thermodynamics, we discussed about energy balance. But first law cannot tell us whether a system will actually work or not. That means even if it satisfies mass balance and energy balance, it is not necessary that a system will work. Say for example, if I have two bodies in contact, say one at a high temperature and one at a lower temperature. Now, if suppose I say that no, heat does not flow from the hot body to a low body, to a lower temperature body, but heat flows from a lower temperature body to a higher temperature body. Now, if that is true, right, it will not violate the first law of thermodynamics, right? If I transfer heat from two bodies are in contact and the heat flows from a lower temperature body to a higher temperature body. Say some school kid who does not know is saying that it flows. It will not violate the first law because energy that is lost from the lower temperature body will be given to the higher temperature body. There is no problem. It will follow the first law of thermodynamics. But if you apply the second law, it will violate the second law. Right? It will violate the second law. So that I will show you that it does not violate the first law but violates the second law. So to see whether process is feasible or not, you have to apply the second law. Unless it first law, it has to satisfy, energy has to be balanced, but it also has to be satisfy the second law to check whether the process is feasible or not. So second law of thermodynamics, Planck, it is called there are different statements of the second law of thermodynamics. So one of them is Kelvin-Planck statement. Okay, so it says that it is impossible for any device. It is impossible for any device that operates on a cycle. You now understand what is a cycle. Cycle means that fluid, the working fluid, comes back to the original state, right? If you have several cycles, you can have several cycles, but each cycle is complete when the state of the working substance, right, comes back to the initial state. Then it's called a cycle. So you know what is a cycle. It is impossible for any device that operates on a cycle to receive heat from a single reservoir, right? So when I'm talking about the coal burning and the heat is being transferred to some cycle, so I'm talking about that fuel as the reservoir from where heat is being transferred to the engine or the power plant which operates in a cycle. So it is impossible for any device that operates on a cycle to receive heat from a single reservoir, right, and produce net amount of work. So that's why I showed you the example of the power plant where we are receiving heat in the boiler from the coal burning, and we are also giving away heat to the condenser at some lower temperature. So we are not receiving heat from a single reservoir and converting into network. We are receiving heat from somewhere. We are also giving away heat to some other, reservoir. So both are happening. I told you about an actual power plant. So it says that it is impossible for any device that operates on a cycle to receive heat from a single reservoir and produce net amount of work. That means all the heat coming from the fuel cannot be converted to work, right? You have to throw away some of the heat. Okay. So what is the second statement? Second statement says that it is impossible to construct a device which operates on a cycle, right, which operates on a cycle which operates on a cycle and produces no other effect than a transfer of heat from a single body in order to produce work. It is another way of saying the same thing. It is impossible to construct a device which operates on a cycle and produce no other effect than transfer of heat from a single body in order to produce work. It says you cannot get heat from a single body, and produce work, right? So it is impossible to construct a device which operates on a cycle and produce no other effect than transfer of heat from a single body in order to produce work. So you cannot have only heat being transferred from a single body and then producing work. Something else also has to happen. Right? So a different way of Kelvin-Planck statement. Now, what is the Clausius statement? Another statement of the second law. So here it talks about whether a cyclic process is feasible or not. It's talking about feasibility. Then Clausius statement. It is impossible to construct a device which operates on a cycle and produces no effect other than the transfer of heat from a lower temperature body to a higher temperature body. I just told you that two bodies are in contact. One is at a lower temperature, another at a higher temperature. So only transferring heat from the lower temperature to higher temperature is not possible. Something else has to be done, right? What is the most common example of heat being transferred from a lower temperature to a higher temperature is our air conditioner. When it's very hot outside, we cool our room. How do we do that? We cool our room by transferring heat from the room to the outside environment, which is very hot. So we are transferring heat from the lower temperature room to a surrounding which is at higher temperature. But we are doing something else along with it. We have designed such a big machine, costly machine to do that. So it is not a spontaneous thing. Lot of effort is needed. So it is impossible to construct a device which operates on a cycle and produce no effect other than the transfer of heat from lower temperature to higher temperature. So in case of a refrigerator, what does it do? It transfers heat, it takes heat from a lower temperature, throws it out to a higher temperature, and for that we also have to run a compressor inside. That compressor, takes work. So work has to be done. So it is not only transferring heat, there are some other transfers that has to take place. Only transfer of heat from a lower temperature to a higher temperature is not possible. You also have to work transfer along with it. So that is the principle of the refrigerator. So when they designed the air conditioner or refrigerator, they have applied the second law also. Otherwise, they will not be able to design it. So you understand the Clausius statement. Then another way of putting the Clausius statement is that heat can never pass from a colder to a warmer body without just a minute, I have a phone call. Hello. Hello. I'm in class A. So another statement of Clausius statement is that heat can never pass from a colder to a warmer body without some other change connected with it occurring at the same time. So same example of the air conditioning or refrigerator, where we take heat from a colder space and throw heat out into a hot space. But we need a huge device, expensive device like a refrigerator uh, or a air conditioner. But if you just keep two bodies in contact, one at a higher temperature and one at a lower temperature, then heat spontaneously flows from the higher temperature to lower temperature. Nothing else has to be done. Just keep them side by side. Okay, so that is spontaneous. Okay, so this is what the second law is all about. Now let us go deeper into the second law so that we can put it in some sort of a quantification. We want to quantify, right? Have some equations so that we can apply it. These are all statements, right? So our equations will also corroborate these statements. Now let us go a little bit deeper here. Now let us talk about a heat engine, right? What is a heat engine? Heat engine is we'll talk about heat engine and a reverse heat engine. Heat engine is something which produces net work, right? Which produces net work. So this is the network. It is producing some net work output, and it has to take heat from a higher temperature body and has to give heat out to a lower temperature reservoir, right? So it will take heat, and this is the only way we can have a heat engine. That means you are taking heat from some source and at least partly converting it into work, network, right? Because we know, as per the second law, all the heat that we take from the higher temperature, it could be the, our, fuel, the coal which is burning, or it could be the petrol that we are burning. So everything cannot be converted to work. Some has to be thrown out, either through the exhaust gas of our ICE engine, with which some heat goes out, right? Or it could be the power plant, where you have a condenser and you throw out a lot of heat. Now, this conversion, how much of this heat that you get from the higher temperature you are able to convert, that is called the thermal efficiency of the engine. It is only 30–40%. It cannot be more than that. So 60% you again give it back to nature. You take from nature, our coal, and you give it back to nature. So that is why power plants, at least in the olden days, it always used to be beside a river. So that river water is used to do this cooling, to take away the heat exchanger. Okay. Of course, nowadays, even if you see the Kolaghat thermal power plant, if you come by, it is beside the river, right? It's beside the river. So that is because you need to throw away a lot of heat. Now, so this is called the heat engine. Okay, and it's a reversible process. What is a reversible process? Reversible process. So there is some fluid, working fluid, which goes through a cycle, continuous cycle. Right? It goes from one, it passes through several devices, and finally it comes back to its original state. So it's a cyclic process. And ideally, in real life, they're not reversible. Even you saw, I mean, I was trying to do that problem. I was not aware that this isobutane, the real gas, is so far away from the ideal gas. So that is why our answers did not match. We had to look up the tables. The tables give you the real properties, but many a times under certain temperatures and conditions, if the pressure is much low, right? Much low means compared to the triple point, then it behaves very close to an ideal gas. And isobutane, as we saw, it did not follow the ideal gas, equations. So you have to look it up from the charts or the tables or wherever, where they have done actual measurements and uh, made it available in some form or the other. Because when you actually divide, even for water and steam, steam does not exactly follow the ideal gas laws unless the pressure is very, very low. So we always have to look up the chart. We cannot, even for the steam vapor, we should not rely on the ideal gas equations. So we must look up the chart or the from the online. We have to use them, the values. Okay. So here, so this is a heat engine. For our analysis, we will say that it's reversible. You have understood what is a reversible process. It is quasi-static, and every state it goes through several equilibrium points. When it goes from one state to another, and that is a very slow. It goes from one equilibrium, then it goes to a next equilibrium, like that. It goes from one state to another. So this is idealization. So we will also, for our analysis, we can assume it to be a reversible process. So this heat engine, suppose we have a reverse heat engine. That is also reversible process. Reversible process. Reverse heat engine and reversible process, they're two different things, right? Reversible. The process is reversible. So, right? So reverse heat engine is also reversible process, and heat engine is also reversible process. What is a reverse heat engine? In that case, the heat flow is from a lower temperature to a higher temperature. So that is called the reverse heat engine. So everything is reverse. So Q net out will go out. Now you'll have Q net in. W net in, right? Net work in. Right? Instead of work producing, work consuming, and heat will be taken from the lower temperature body and thrown to the higher temperature reservoir. So this is, so heat flow direction is from higher temperature to lower temperature, and work is output. Here heat flow direction is from the lower temperature to higher temperature and work in. Right? That is called the reverse heat engine. So reverse heat engine, one of the biggest example, most common example is your air conditioner or the refrigerator that you use at home. Okay. So for our analysis, we will always assume that the process, the cycle inside, right, the cycle inside is reversible process. So when you have a reverse heat engine, right, so how do you try to find out its performance? Coefficient of performance, that is called coefficient of performance. Coefficient of performance, COP. That is the desired output by work input. Desired output by work input. So what is the desired output? In a refrigerator or a air conditioner, cooling the low temperature reservoir or the space is the desired output. And for a heat pump means, say for example, in Kashmir, it is snowing outside, and you want to cool the heat up the room. So you have to take heat from the outside, and you have to heat up the space. So heat up the space inside. So you take heat from the cold surrounding where it's snowing in Kashmir, and then you have to heat up the room. So that is same thing. We are calling it a heat pump. When this reverse heat engine, the purpose is to heat up a room, it's called a heat pump. When the purpose is to cool some space, it is called a refrigerator, right? So heat engine can be operated with two different objectives. Refrigerator means cool the low temperature reservoir, heat pump, heat the high temperature reservoir. In most foreign countries, where in many places where the outside temperature can sometimes be very cold and sometimes is very hot, there in their homes they operate a reverse heat engine, sometimes for cooling purpose, sometimes as a heat pump. The same device, right, can be used to cool the room as well as heat up the room. So one device they have, and then the one machine they have, they run it as a heat pump as well as the air conditioner. That can be you can have that. So 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 COP of a refrigerator is QL, because QL is the purpose objective, and W net in is the coefficient of performance of a refrigerator, while the coefficient of performance of a heat pump is QH, because you're trying to give out you are trying to heat up the high temperature space. So that is your desired output, and the work in, that is the what you are spending. This is what you are spending. So coefficient of performance of a heat pump is coefficient of performance of a refrigerator. So this is the how you get the performance of a reverse heat engine. Now if you are talking about regular heat engine, then we talk about thermal efficiency. Thermal efficiency, TH, thermal efficiency. That is here work producing. Heat engine is work producing. Our desired, what do we desire? W net out is what we desire. So work. And what are we spending? Our fuel, right? That is the heat that we get from the burning coal. So that is at high temperature, QH in, right? And unfortunately, we have to throw away something. That is why the efficiency is not 100%. So for a heat engine, thermal efficiency, we always talk about thermal efficiency, where it's a work producing device. The W net out is our what we desire output, and this is what we spend. Here work in is what we spend, and this is our output. Right? So this is what we spend, and this is our output. So this is how we get the performance of a reverse heat engine and a heat engine. So I have already told you about this reversible process, right? Reversible process. Reversible process, where this is an ideal thing, and every state that it goes through, they're all equilibrium states, quasi-static. So it goes from one state to another. This is a process which is reversible. So you can again, so this, for this you are having some work transfer and heat transfer. When you go back the other way, you will have the same work transfer and heat transfer. There is no hysteresis loss. There is no hysteresis. You will get back the same work transfer, heat transfer. But if you have irreversible, that means I am doing it by dashed lines. That means the exact state that it passes through cannot be well defined, right? It is not quasi-static. So the exact bulk, the state, exact state is not unique. I mean, you cannot specify it properly. So the end states are known. So this is irreversible. It is not going through equilibrium states. Irreversible. So what are the examples of irreversible process? Examples are heat transfer through delta T, a finite temperature difference, heat transfer, that is irreversible. Then free expansion, irreversible. Friction, irreversible. So these are some irreversible processes which we always encounter, right? Now let us give you an example of a cycle by Saad Carnot. So he imagined a cycle like this. Now if you do a PV diagram, so he said, and he constructed also a Carnot cycle, an engine. So these are two reversible isothermal, right, process. This is reversible isothermal and the reversible isothermal. This reversible isothermal process, right? So this is one of them is TH and one is TL. At TH, so it goes from one point to another. Some pressure is changing, volume is changing, and you are adding heat up, right? So volume is expanding when you are adding heat up, and here the volume is decreasing when you are cooling it. So heating and cooling. So here only, uh, you know, heat addition, isothermally heat is being added here. Now, it's adding here, and these two are, here it is isentropic. So adiabatic, it is reversible adiabatic, no heat transfer. Heat transfer only takes place here and here. Here there is no heat transfer. So it is called adiabatic. So it is called adiabatic. So one adiabatic and two adiabatic, so here it is adiabatic, this is also adiabatic. Work transfer can take place, but not heat transfer. And here heat transfer, work transfer both can take place. Here heat transfer, work transfer both can take place. Because PDV work, you can always find out the PDV work. So here heat transfer and work transfer takes place. Here heat transfer does not take place. So if you're talking about heat transfer only, heat transfer takes place only in those two places. Work transfer can take place anywhere, right? So this is the concept of a Carnot cycle, and every process is reversible. So two reversible isothermal process and two reversible adiabatic process, right? So you have to read up the book. I have also given you the address of some free books which you can download. Now, so before we come to that law, we will also talk about the Carnot, Saad Carnot. Not only he conceived the Carnot engine, these are some of the properties of that Carnot engine, the behavior, and he studied them very thoroughly. He made these engines and studied them. So the Carnot theorem says that the efficiency of an irreversible heat engine. So we were talking about reversible cycles. Okay. So the efficiency of a irreversible heat engine is always less than the efficiency of a reversible one operating between the same two reservoirs. So if we talk about the Carnot engine, right? It is operating between two temperatures, TH and TL. It is receiving heat from the TH, high temperature, and giving out heat to the low temperature. So if we have cycles which operate between these two temperatures, then the cycle that is reversible will give you maximum efficiency. That is what they are saying. The efficiency of an irreversible heat engine is always less than the efficiency of a reversible one operating between the same two reservoirs, right? Same two reservoirs. So this is one aspect of the Carnot theorem. So it says that that means the reversible heat engine will have the maximum efficiency, right, between these two temperatures operating between TH and a TL. Now, it also says the efficiency of all reversible heat engines operating between the same two reservoirs are the same, regardless of the working fluid. That also he figured it out. He did lots of experiments over many years and figured out that whatever be the working fluid, it could be steam water, it could be your isopropane gas, right? But whatever be the, if you are able to construct a reversible heat engine operating between two temperatures, then it will always have the same efficiency, right? So two things. One is the reversible heat engine has the maximum efficiency, and all reversible heat engines operating between the same temperatures has the same thermal efficiency. Okay, same efficiency. So now let us look at how to calculate the thermal efficiency of a reversible Carnot cycle. What is a Carnot cycle? Carnot cycle is two processes. One is heat addition at constant temperature. Other one is heat rejection at constant temperature. And what are the other two? Other two are no heat transfer, adiabatic reversible, no heat transfer in those two processes. But you can have work transfer and heat transfer. So if that is the case, then what is the, now this is our, now QH minus QL, right, is the, so we know that cycle, right, cycle. So here in a cycle we know in a cycle Q net in is equal to W net out, W out. So what is the net in? QH minus QL, which is our workout. So this is our Q net in by WH is the Q in. So the ratio between them is our, as per definition, is the efficiency of the reversible Carnot cycle. As we said that this efficiency only depends on the temperature TH and the temperature TL. So it must be a function of, so although we can write it as 1 minus QL by QH, it is basically a function of TH and TL. So basically we can say QH by QL is some function of TH and TL. Right. So if we have Q1 and Q2, then T1 and T2. Similarly, if you have Q2 and Q3 between two other temperatures, right, then it will be T2 and T3. Now if it is Q1 and Q3, then it will be T1 and T3. But if you multiply these two, so what we see is, right, so function of T1, T2 into function of T2, T3, this is the same function and equal to function of T1, T3, right? Because Q1 by, say that we know, right? So Q1 by Q2, Q2 by Q3, multiply it by, you get this right? So that is, we all know that. So this is true. So that means this T1 and T2, should we write it as, so it should be some function of temperature T1 by T2, and then it will be equal to, so this will be valid. So this function has to be something, some temperature at the top by some temperature at the bottom. It can be written in this fashion. Then only when you multiply, it will become T1 and T3. So because here you have T1, T2, T2, T3, here there is no T2. It should be able to, we should be able to cancel it when you multiply. So that is only possible if you have it like a ratio. So this 2 gets cancelled. Right? This phi 2, this function gets cancelled. Right? So we can say that, so this gets cancelled, right? This one and this one gets cancelled. And you get T1 and T3. So what is this temperature scale, right? Where we'll be able to write, some temperature scale that Q2 by Q3 will be equal to some T2 by T3. That scale we want. What should we use centigrade? Should we use Fahrenheit? Or should we come up with some other scale? So this temperature scale where QH by QL is equal to some TH by TL, some function, right? So that is called the Kelvin temperature scale, right? Kelvin temperature scale. So how did you figure out the Kelvin temperature scale? We did some experiment was done. So Q by Q triple point of H2O. Triple point of H2O is 273.16. That is the triple point. So if you have heat transfer from there, and then if heat transfer some at arbitrary temperature T, right? So this is, so this was called as 273.16, this temperature. And so the other, so that is how, so it was defined. If this is 273.16, this is our T. So this is the temperature scale, right? That is the temperature scale. So and it is called as Kelvin. That is how this temperature scale Kelvin came from thermodynamics concepts. Now, so that gave rise to the Kelvin temperature scale. If you put this in centigrade, and this is also in centigrade triple point, it will not work, right? So they came up with this Kelvin temperature scale. And of course, there's a relation between Kelvin temperature scale, centigrade temperature scale, Fahrenheit temperature scale. There's a relation. This is the Kelvin temperature scale. Now, let us construct a cycle like this, and let us see if it is feasible. So, I told you the Carnot cycle where we have two isothermal, one Q coming in, one going out, and two reversible adiabatic, right? That is what I had told you earlier, right? Let us go back and see. That was the reversible Carnot engine. So at TH, at TL, in both places you have heat transfer, right? And in this you don't have any heat transfer. Okay. We have two places where you have heat transfer, high and low. Now suppose we construct a device where only at one temperature, you have a heat transfer Q1, right? And of course rest you have no heat transfer, reversible adiabatic. So if you have to construct a cycle, so these two lines, right, reversible adiabatic, these two reversible must meet somewhere, then only we can construct this cycle, right? And this is here, all the Q in is being converted to work out. Now this will violate. We have said that all the work cannot be converted to a work output. So we see that this device that we have, this cycle that we have constructed, where we have one isothermal and two reversible adiabatic, is not feasible. So two reversible adiabatic process cannot meet cannot meet at a point. If these two are able to meet, then we'll be able to construct this cycle. If the processes meet at some point here, then we'll be able to construct this cycle, right? So that means two reversible adiabatic processes cannot meet at a point. This is not feasible, right? Not feasible, right? Cannot meet at a point. Cannot meet at a point. That means two reversible adiabatic processes will never meet at a point. They will run sort of parallelly. You cannot meet. If you in a PV diagram, you'll never be able to make this process meet. If it does meet, then we will be able to construct this cycle and violate the second law. So we know two reversible adiabatic process cannot meet at a point. So that means two reversible adiabatic process right? This is one and this is one, cannot meet at a point. So they are running parallelly. These two reversible adiabatic is able to run parallelly. Okay. So, but we can, and then we can connect them with a reversible isothermal process. Some reversible isothermal process. So let it be a PV diagram. We are connecting it by a reversible isothermal process. So these are two reversible adiabatic. They are not meeting anywhere, right? They are parallel, and we connect them by a reversible adiabatic process, AB. Now let us take some arbitrary path 1 and 2. Let us take some arbitrary path 1 and 2. So this is reversible adiabatic. This is reversible adiabatic. We have connected them by a reversible isothermal, and again connect them by some arbitrary path 1 and 2. So we have, so basically, so we can go from 1 to 2. We can go from 1 to 2 along this arbitrary path, or we can go from 1 to 2 by a zigzag path 1A B2, right? So 1A B2. However, this arbitrary path that you have chosen is such that we will have the same delta Q and same delta W. These are reversible. Same delta Q, same delta W. We will have same delta Q, heat transfer, same work transfer. So let us do it. So Q12, right? Q12. So we have the process Q12. So you have Q12, right? So here some heat input is there, and as per the first law, so it will be U2 minus U1, right? Increase in internal energy plus work W12, work out, right? Kinetic energy, potential energy we are not considering. Just let us see. Thought experiment. Again, so this is one. So let us have the path 1A B2. So then Q1A B2 and same U2 minus U1, this, and then W1A B2. So we have two paths. One is directly going from 1 to this, and the other one is taking reversible adiabatic, isothermal, and reversible adiabatic, connecting the two endpoints. Okay. So we have said that same Q, same W. Right. Same Q, same W. So okay. So this process is equivalent to this zigzag process, provided the A and B points are chosen properly, because there is a unique reversible adiabatic process going through point 2. There is a unique reversible adiabatic process going through point 1. And we have chosen A and B. Choose A and B such that W12 is equal to W1A B2 and Q1A B2 is equal to Q12. Right. So because this is same, so if this one is same, this has to be same. These two also has to be same, right? If the work is same, work here and here are same, naturally this also has to be same because u2 minus u1 is same because the state function, right? So if you can choose w1 to equal to this, then naturally this one will also become equal to this, right? So this way we can ensure the same work transfer, heat transfer. So that means we are always able to construct, given any given any path 1 to 2, we can always construct a zigzag path, right, consisting of 2 reversible adiabatic and 1 isothermal, which will give me the same delta Q and same delta W, same heat transfer, same work transfer. So any process 1 to 2 can be converted to 2 reversible adiabatic and one reversible isothermal, which will give me the same work transfer and same heat transfer. That we have proved now. So let us apply it here. So let this be some cyclic process, right? Cyclic process. So what we'll do is we will have this several reversible adiabatic. They are not meeting each other. We have said that 2 reversible adiabatic paths can never meet. So they are all parallel. So we are putting several reversible adiabatic path through this, right? Several reversible adiabatic paths. Okay. So reversible. So now A1, B1, right? So now this blue line, this blue path, small path, has been intercepted by 2 reversible adiabatic. So this thing, right, between this point and this point, right? So this can be represented by a zigzag path consisting of a reversible adiabatic, isothermal, again reversible adiabatic. So this path can be converted to reversible adiabatic, reversible isothermal, again reversible adiabatic, right? Adiabatic means no heat transfer. Similarly, this path also here on this page also can be between this and this path can be converted to a zigzag path, reversible adiabatic, reversible isothermal, reversible adiabatic. Having same here saying W1 Q1 delta Q1, here also same delta Q2 delta W2. Okay. So we have done that. So that means if I take out this piece, bounded by 2 reversible adiabatic, this piece I want to take it out. If I take out this piece, right? So here there is dq1 and here there is dq2, right? So I have replaced it by a reversible isothermal here and another reversible isothermal here. This reversible isothermal is for high temperature heat transfer. This reversible isothermal that we have, reversible isothermal, is for low temperature heat transfer. So this piece I am taking it out here, right? So this is isothermal heat transfer, dqh. So this dq1 is like dqh, high temperature, and dq2 was dql. So this is like a Carnot cycle, right? This has become like a Carnot cycle. So this arbitrary, path that we have, we are able to convert that into several Carnot cycles, right? If you add all these Carnot cycles, you get any cyclic process that you have, reversible cyclic process can be converted to several the Carnot cycles. Can divide into several that I have shown to you, several Carnot cycles, right? We have converted to several Carnot cycles. So this dH by dl, TH by TL. So dH by TH is equal to dQl by TL. We are not putting the sign yet, right? Sign here. So we can say So this is equal. So dQH by TH equal to dQL by TL, if it, right? So if we take the sign into account and say that dQH is positive, actually, I have a phone call, just a minute. Hello. I am busy now. Okay. So what we have shown here is now, if you put the, if we decide that heat in, Q in is positive and dq which is leaving is negative, if we have such a system of giving the sign of positive negative, then when we add this up it will become 0. They are equal in magnitude and we have put the appropriate sign, so this will become 0. This is in and this is out, or at low temperature it could be in and high temperature it could be out. So they will have different signs, opposite signs. So if that is the case, if you have opposite sign between heat coming into the system and heat going out of the system, we use opposite signs. Then if you take this integral for a cycle, because I told you the cyclic process we have divided into several Carnot cycles. So here this minus this, if you take the appropriate temperature, it will be 0. So like that, if you add all of them up and a cycle, it will become 0. If it's a reversible cycle for reversible only, we are considering everything to be reversible. So we have now come up with the answer that in a reversible cycle, dq reversible, right? It could be heat coming in or going out of the system, reversible system. If you integrate it by T, and this is the temperature at which the heat transfer takes place, right? Then if in a cycle it will be 0, right? So this is called the second law. While in the first law in a cycle, Q dot in net is Q dot out net, right? Always true, right? Always true. But this is true for a reversible case, right? If it's reversible, then dq reversible by T, if you integrate over the full cycle, it is 0, right? While C, so interesting, dq is a, of course a path function. Also in this case, we know that always true is this is also true. If it's a cycle, then dq net is equal to dw net. But if it is not a cycle, so not a cycle, then d is equal to dq minus dw. So if it goes in a cycle, then this one will become 0 in a cycle, because E is not a path function, state function. That's why I wrote dE, right? If it goes back to the same state, this will become 0, and so then dq in will be equal to dq out, right? So this is our in, right? This is out. So if it's not a cycle, this is how we write. If it's a cycle, this is how we write. So this is all the first law, always true, always true, always true. This is only true for reversible process. That this is, so this is also called change in entropy. That is how the concept of entropy came. So because it's a cycle, it is 0, right? So this also in a cycle, if you do a cycle, this and this, say, if you do a cycle, right? So this in a cycle is 0. So that means this must be expressible as dE, which is state function. Because if it goes in a cycle, it becomes 0. So although this is not a state function, this is a path function, this is a path function, but this minus this is a state function. Because in a cycle, this becomes 0. Similarly here, in a cycle, this becomes 0. So this must be equal to
Sir,
must
on the
be-
right hand side formula, this is
Yes.
dq in
this has to be ds. So this is the concept of entropy. It has to be ds, like dq minus dw in a cycle. In a cycle, it says this equal to this, right? This whole thing. So if you put it together, one minus another, it is 0. So that means this minus this must be a state function, d, a state function, right? So this is in a cycle, this is 0. So in a cycle, this is also 0. This is also state function. So this is a state function, right? State function. So this is also state function. This is also a state function. S and E both are state functions, because in a cycle they become 0. Otherwise you cannot make it 0. So dq is not a, it's a path function. dw is a path function, but dq minus dw is a state function. So dq is a path function, but when dq divided by t, it becomes a state function, right? So that is the beauty. So first law gave us dE, right? A state function where E is equal to U plus kinetic energy, potential energy, or you can just say internal concept of internal energy came here. So here also you have the ds concept. So second law of thermodynamics gave us entropy. First law of thermodynamics gave us energy or internal energy, whatever you call it, right? Okay. So then we will talk more about, this entropy. How do we use entropy, right? So dE is equal to, so basically dE is equal to d kinetic energy is 0 and potential, so this is du, right? State function. Okay, so we now know what is entropy, how entropy came. I think we can end it here, and we will explain it